Hello everyone! So we're now back for the Willpower instalment of the TESL card art celebration, the series in which I talk about the card art and also where I know of particularly fun memories of other players and within the game. Then I'll comment on those as well. So we're starting off with Calm. Not often played. The art on that's okay. It's a bit of a pity her face is kind of obscured a little bit though. This one, actually quite like her outfit. Anyway, I know that's a bit of a girly wordy thing to say. Anyway, this one actually, I do have a memory attached to it, although it's not much played on ladder. Actually, that's quite pretty now. It's got the snow effect. It seems to, the background makes her stand out more, so there's more definition to the art. It just makes the contrast a bit better. So that is definitely better than the standard. Anyway, there is a memory I've got attached to this one, because although it's not widely played on ladder, my clansmate Banana Schwab Friends, he actually tried out experimenting with Calm in it was a goblin monk deck, so a bit more interesting than the normal flavour of goblins, and he actually used that to give like a whole to give a creature -4 and to buff up his goblin. So it can be played. It's not played often, but it was quite a different twist on goblins. Anyway, I do like the card art on that. I like the snow effect. I just wish that effect wasn't covering her whole face, though. I think it'd be better if they positioned it somewhere else. So that's supposed to indicate that she's calmed. This is an ugly little beast, isn't it? I know of, obviously, although it's not played a lot in the Invade decks, there is one particular Invade player who tends to play it a lot. In fact, there's somebody who plays Token Crusader who isn't playing Invade but still plays this just because it's cheap and they can get it out and get their pit line out because it's easy to do when you've got really cheap cards in hand. Really ugly thing, isn't it? So it's still ugly, but I do like the sky and the effect in the background, so I think that's definitely better than the standard art. Now this card here, this one that used to make me feel really resentful, because whenever I was playing Halalu and I got out, is it Pawnbroker, the one who has the plot ability? 9 times out of 10 should give me this, and it's so useless. Because everything except, well, unless you get Cloud Rest and can combo with that, or if you've maybe if you're playing against Invade, it's pretty useless, isn't it? The art's okay on the premium. But anyway, I used to get really cross and feel betrayed when Pawnbroker would give me that after a plot. Because it does take some setup to do plot, and then to get that was totally useless out of it. I just felt shafted. Never ever played this. The art on it's okay. It's nothing to write home about, is it? That does make the card come alive more, having not so much the light over their face, but more the effect in the background and the effect when it's on the money on the table. So that is quite good. You can probably tell I'm sounding a bit more animated today actually, because the last few ones I've done I've been doing after work and I've been really tired. So I'm working extremely long hours at the moment. Well, actually, by some miracle, I feel a bit more awake this evening. I suppose it's a little bit earlier as well. It's like 8 PM rather than like 11 o'clock at night or heading towards midnight. Yeah, this is fairly basic, the card, and fairly basic art as well. I do quite like the purple effect on the weapon there, though. Again, if you're doing like a token deck and you want to get, or pit line deck and you want to have something cheap but also get your pit line out, it's quite good to play this card. I do sometimes see this one played. Obviously it's played more often in Versus Arena, but it does sometimes get some play when people want to try and eliminate anything troublesome that's hiding in the shadow lane. that looks lovely, doesn't it? That's really beautiful. Yeah, maybe I'll have to play with that before end of TESL. I quite like the effect on the lantern there. Makes me feel all nice and warm and toasty. Looks like an old-fashioned aviator, doesn't he? Yeah, and that's okay. It's quite moody, I suppose. You never ever see the poor guy played, though. I suppose the background does make it stand out more there, doesn't it? It's quite atmospheric. That does actually improve the card, I think. Maybe I'll just do another Outcast deck and add in some of these people who never play, just so they get their time in the sun before TESL ends. Most of the Invade art is pretty ugly, but that one, although the Scab's not exactly the most fetching individual, it is actually, I don't mind the art of that one, it's a bit better. I suppose I'm a bit biased because the flames and the fire in the background. And that is quite a good effect, use of the flame effect there, so I'll say that's a bit better. I do like blackmail as a card. I've never really run a full-on thief deck, but occasionally to be mischievous, I do like to run blackmail, partly just to see what the other person's deck is, because it's not always obvious. And it's quite good fun. I'll normally only run like one as a random bit of fun, occasionally two, if I'm particularly mischievous. Yeah, I think the premium is, well, it's fairly subtle, but it's a bit nicer, isn't it? I used to play this guy a lot when I was a newbie. Basically, he was cheap. I didn't have many cards to choose from, but I used to protect him with a lot, as if he was like the most important card on the board for some reason. I think I just was, when I was like a lot of new people, when you think drain, I can't lose if I'm going to have lots of life, but of course you do, don't you? I like the premium effect here, particularly on the weapon. I've always felt this card's a little bit overrated. Obviously it can spiral out of control, but I've never really felt it merited the amount of, I mean, it's popular, it gets used a lot. I never really felt that it merited it, because it's so easily removed. All the hype around it, that is. And I'm not particularly a fan of the art on either of them either. It's okay. Now I do like the art on this. I mean, that does look like quite a nice sort of potion there, doesn't it? Quite a rich colour to it. And that is a very pretty effect there. So, looks like we're off to a good start with the Willpower cards. In that some of the cards you've had some of the other attributes, I thought the standard art is better and looks more defined than the premiums, but so far most of the premiums in here are actually enhancing the art rather than making it look faded. That's quite hypnotic. I better stop staring at it, otherwise I might end up going into a trance. So this is obviously a very useful card. It can take out things like Venom Tongue and any other problematic cards that have got low hit power. So it does get played an awful lot, particularly in Guild Swarm, but in other cards with other decks with this attribute as well. I quite like the art on this. Obviously the guy looks a bit on the miserable side. He's about to have his head chopped off, isn't he? I actually prefer the standard art on this. I just think it looks a little bit more faded here with the effects. However, I got this relatively late. It was in an event and I forget, I think it might have been 2024 I got this. Because I've seen it played on ladder a few times and really liked the art. So I was really pleased when it became available. I forget which event it was, but it just looks so much more sinister. And I do really like the art on it. So I think although the art on the standard art is okay, I think the alt art is better. I do quite like this card. I know it's rubbish, and it's a really rubbish prophecy and more of a delaying tactic, but it is quite good fun. I sometimes use it in versus arena. Of course, although the standard art, it just can't compete with this premium. Look how beautiful that is. I mean, I think this would have to go in the hypnotic cards as well. When I do a hypnotic cards video, I was thinking originally top 10 hypnotic cards, but there's quite a few hypnotic cards. I might have to do more than 10 just to fit some of these beauties in. Marked Man, very well liked card, used a lot to get pit line out in token decks and things, but also very useful in other decks as well. Gives a cheap guard, and if you've got something to be able to buff up your field, even better. I do quite like the sunlight effect on here. I think it's quite relaxing if you look at the sort of the motes in the air. So yeah, I mean, I suppose I like them both fairly equally. With this one, that effect there, the motes, just the little motes of colour in the air. I think that just makes this one ever slightly better. Moon Bishop, it's quite a nice sort of colour combination of the sky and everything in the background, but it's a bloody annoying card for somebody like myself. I don't really like Waxwayne Monk decks, so when I see this come down, you just know that Rebellion General's not going to be far behind it. The card art's quite nice though. Actually, that premium does really improve upon it as well, because you've got the movement behind, and that makes him stand out more. And I think that's quite relaxing to watch, actually. And there's the kind of smoky atmosphere in the sky in the background, so yeah, maybe I'll have to gaze at that more often, because it is quite hypnotic, and if it could be good stress relief looking at that, couldn't it? Outflank. Never ever see this played. I mean, it's not the most exciting card in the world, and the art looks pretty boring there as well. Sorry to be mean. That does make it a little bit better, but it's still not that great in my opinion. Here's one of my favourites, a cute little Khajiit. I've got a soft spot for Khajiits anyway. I particularly like this one. She's good fun. I mean, she gets targeted a lot, even though she only summons a 1/1 recruit. People don't seem to like that. I suppose they're always worried about token decks getting a lot of buff. Got a nice outfit as well, isn't she? Quite a subtle effect there in the background, but she does seem to stand out a little bit more. So this is a case where the light effects actually do make the main art stand out more. I like both versions of the card, but the premium just ever so slightly takes it for me in terms of which one's my favourite. Scouting Patrol, a good sense of movement going on in the card, and it is a very good card for getting the board out quickly, particularly if you've got Pit Lion and you want to get it out. Not a huge amount of extra stuff going on the premium there, though, is there? I think I actually prefer the standard art version, because it just looks a little bit more defined. The premiums look a little bit faded in places. Now, this was a surprise. I was earlier this evening. I was actually getting all my cards converted over to have a premium copy and a standard copy in I keep wanting to call Willpower Intelligence for some reason, but in Willpower. And the premium of this, well, you'll see in a minute, it's really beautiful. I have seen this guy played on ladder. I was really chuffed when I saw him. Somebody put him in a token deck just because it was getting... Actually, I think they beat me. They had incredibly low to the ground, cheap cards, and they were able to get them a buff quite early on. Admittedly, they had the ring. But I actually was quite pleased to see that, because I thought the poor guy never gets played, and there was somebody playing him. But look at this. I mean, that is really lovely. I'm going to have to put that on my list of cards to stare at if I want to hypnotise myself. I like that background effect. Maybe I'll make up a video. I mean, I'm going to do a video on hypnotic cards, but I might just do a self-hypnosis TESL cards video for myself to watch, and then I can just sit and watch it and put myself in a relaxing trance. I could do that because I've worked long hours. Anyway, I think that's a really nice premium there. Sunhold Medic's kind of a nostalgia card for me. I don't really play her that much anymore, but when I was new, obviously she's on the few cards that I had, so she used to get played a lot. She looks quite serious, doesn't she? That is definitely a nicer effect there. You've got the snow in the background and the warm honey colour in the front ground. So that is quite an improvement, really. Never going to be a fan of seeing that, because it's support related, and I'm not a great fan of supports in general. The art on the premium is much enhanced though, so I'd say that's definitely a case of where the premium is way better than the original. It does really make it the art stand out more. Ambitious Hireling. I do really like this card. I think it's good fun. The art on it's a bit on the dark side though. I mean, he doesn't stand out particularly. I know he's obviously hiding, but he doesn't stand out that much there. And yeah, it's okay, the premium, but it's not. It's still quite a somber card, so it's not going to ever be one of my favourites. But it's a fun card to play with on ladder when you want to sort of, particularly in Redderun, if you want to sort of buff something that you've already got out. Oh, this is one of my ones I got a soft spot for, Blind Moth Priest. I used to play him mainly in my Imperial Tribal Mage deck, which was a very weak deck, but I really loved playing it, and it's a fun effect, and I love the visual when he does actually catch a prophecy, so I'll have to see if I can capture that visual before the game ends, because it's fun. Got so much stuff I would like to achieve in this game before it finishes. I just really hope I get the time to do it, because I'm working such long hours. Yeah, I think that's very atmospheric, the premium version, so I do really like that. Blood Pack Messenger gets quite a lot of use. Actually, I've never really looked that closely at the art on this card, but it's actually pretty good. I know I'm a bit biased where Khajiit's concerned. Yes, I suppose we've got the light in the background and his little dagger, haven't we? They've not done a huge amount extra to him there, but he does seem to stand out. I think the light in the background does make him seem a little bit more defined, so that's quite nice. Obviously an auto include in most willpower decks. Well, I always get a little bit annoyed if I'm just about to kill my opponent and they do a conscription and they get him out first, and then everyone else comes down and they sort of get a lot of health back. I think there's an alt art version of him, but sadly I've never... I think it was before my time in TESL, so I'm never going to have the chance to get it, really. But I do quite like the effect of that premium. hopefully, if somebody's out there playing against me on ladder and they happen to be playing their alternative art Broomer, then I'll try and capture it on film if anyone has one and they happen to come across me, or if anyone wants to play a friendly and then let me capture their alt art Broomer, then let me know. And then I can maybe get a copy up on the channel so people can enjoy it. This poor little Khajiit doesn't get much love, does she? I might have to... Did I play her in one of my Outcast decks? I might have played her in an Outcast deck. I have a feeling I did. But... she doesn't get much love, does she? It's okay, the premium. It's nothing particularly special. I think again it's got quite a drab background. Yeah, obviously he's very good if you can get him. It's useful just to keep your creatures alive that little bit longer. I often get him confused in my head with the one that when you got at least 2 cards out on the board of this attribute that you get a card draw off it. So I always get the 2 confused, and I get confused, and then I think, oh no, it's not that one after all. When I realise. Come back. So that's quite nice. I mean, I wouldn't put it up in the hypnotic tier, but it is quite a relaxing sort of one to look at, isn't it? So I think that is better than the standard version. Of course, I am probably biased because of the flame effect again. This is a fun one and a nice way to... I like the plot mechanic. It's a nice way to get a little bit of extra health. Oh, I keep clicking off things too soon. I'm having a clumsy a clumsy evening, shall I say. So I'd say I actually think I prefer the standard version. I mean, I do like the background, but I think the light coming down over his face is a little bit distracting. So I think I prefer the standard version, really. Pretty boring sort of art, but it is what it is. I do sometimes see people play this. I call them like guards are us decks when I see people and they've got loads of guards. It's okay, the premium, but again, it's the base art's not particularly exciting, is it? To be fair, there's not a huge amount they could do with that. 5th Legion, very, very useful. Pain if they can get good value out of it when you're surfacing it across the board. And she actually has what looks like fairly decent armour, because quite a few of the ladies in TESL, they're not in the most practical outfits, which makes me giggle. She seems to have a bit more of a practical outfit. And that's quite nice, the effect around the blade, isn't it? Very useful card. The art on it's okay. I mean, some of the item art can be a bit boring, can't it? But the art on that one's okay. I quite like the pattern on that. There's quite a fair amount of detail. And that does make it... This is a case where I think a lot of these willpower cards, they have actually got the balance right between the effect and the art, because this one, the art doesn't look faded. It actually looks like it jumps out more with the effects in the background. Yeah, I like that. That's very nice. This is Giggles, as Schward would call her. I'm never happy to see her come down on the opposite side of the board because it means my opponent's going to be gaining health, so I tend to prioritise getting rid of her. I do like the art on this one. She's got a nice blue outfit, so I like blues, greens and purples. So I'm kind of biased there, and I like the sort of swirly power around her as well. That's a girly wordy thing to say, isn't it? Yeah, so obviously that is enhanced there. So I do... well, both versions of the card are good, aren't they, really? Yeah. Well, I think I'd like that one slightly more. Good old Giggles. Well, unless she's on the opposite side of the board. And then I'm saying Giggles must die. Anyway, Harmony. So I have seen this one used by Banana Schwab Friends when he was experimenting with a goblin deck, but it was a goblin monk deck, so a bit different from your normal flavour of goblins. And he used that to buff up the what's it, goblin? Is it Goblin Sculpt, the one that has the 2/2 and then it gets buffed when a creature's power goes down? So he used it in that fairly successfully. It's quite fun to watch him playing that. I think I prefer the standard art version on this. I think that effect's a little bit distracting. Again, that healing potion, I like the well, I suppose, let's face it, I like the colour of the sort of bottle. It's a nice rich red, and then you've got the lovely sort of colour of the flowers next to it. So I do like the art on that. As I said, some of these cards where you've got like either an item or an artifact can be a little bit boring, but I quite like that one. And then of course you've got the power around the vial and the ingredients. So that one I do quite like as well. Fairly even between the two, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose this one's just about. If I was forced to pick a favourite, I'd probably go with this one. I like the sense of movement, and actually the colour does seem more vibrant. Again, the effects are kind of bringing out the richness of the art rather than obscuring it. This guy gets played a lot in token decks and can get very dangerous and out of control. But fortunately, I'm often running Shadowfen Priest because I tend to run Ebon or Covenant a lot. So I've often got a Shadowfen Priest in there, and so that soon puts an end to the fun, doesn't it? Not a great fan of the art, but obviously he's meant to look like some tough guy. And the snow definitely improves the ambience of the card. I suppose it's quite fun if you're playing a lot of tokens and you can get him buffed up quickly. So this is quite a useful card. I do like Imprison, but it does kind of force me when I'm fighting against tokens to make certain they never have 4 yellow creatures on board, so they can't get value out of it, because it is very cheap removal. Okay, sorry, I keep clicking off things too. Well, my hand slipped and I clicked off too early. I actually prefer the standard art. I think the art looks a lot more defined in that, and yeah, I think the standard art, it just looks a bit more defined. That's kind of making it look a bit more faded. I know, obviously this guard's another nostalgia one because he's in like the starter decks, isn't he? Actually, the premium is particularly good on that. I think I was crafting some stuff for like a guards deck a while back. I forget now. But although it's quite subtle, the premium is quite good on this. You've got the glint on the armour. Or am I confusing it with another one? I'm just thinking. I thought actually maybe it's not the one I'm thinking of. I thought there was a bit more definition with the premium. Oh, there was more definition on his glove, for example, but I can't see it that there, so I must have mixed him up with another card anyway. Yeah, I suppose it's a fairly subtle premium, isn't it? Quite like the art on this one. I mean, there's not a huge amount you can say about item art, is there really, but I quite like the look of that. And I do think the premium is just that little bit better. Again, you've got the motes in the air, the dust motes in the air, and the highlighting of the artifact. Very rarely see this guy played on ladder, but I did see him played. I think he was in a Dominion deck. It was this season as well, so I think they were tending to go face a lot, and therefore they had actions they were trying to empower. I think they did manage to get a fair amount of value out of it. They're not often seen these days. Fairly subtle effect on here. I think the I think. So I can begin to feel I'm tripping over my words a little bit because I'm beginning to get tired. I've been talking for the better part of an hour now. I think the sound art's better than that. I prefer it when their faces aren't obscured. So yeah, I think I prefer the standard version for that. Now, obviously, I'm not a great fan of Invade, but a lot of the art on the Invade cards is very ugly. This one's okay, actually. You've got a sense of fluidity around the outfit. You've got the beautiful sky in the background. And that. And so that's actually one of the better Invade cards in terms of art. And there, it's either sunrise or sunset. I get a feeling it's sunset. So that is better, but the art on both of them is pretty good. I think it's one of the better Invade cards. I don't mean better in terms of effect, I mean better in terms of the aesthetic of it. Here we go, very useful and cheap draw. Not the most exciting art going, but very, very useful card. And the sunlight effect is quite good here, isn't it? Okay, he doesn't get played very much. The art's not the most exciting on here. Yeah, again, it's okay, but it's a bit mediocre, isn't it? Ravenous Hunger's very useful card. I mean, played outside of Invade decks as well. I think people like the fact it's very nice, cheap drain, and if you get the chance, particularly in Crusader, and you're behind, you can always use it with Unstoppable Rage quite easily to get drain back, so you have more, get a huge chunk of life back if you're able to take out a whole lane. I don't think there's anything that much exciting going on here. I mean, the premium's okay, but when you think that before TESL was due to close, that would have been 1600 gems. There's not a huge amount going on with it, is there? A little bit lackluster. Not the most practical of outfits. Just get used a fair bit, again as another form of removal really. Often comboed with execute, or just to allow for a trade. Well, that is a better version, I think she stands out more because of the effect around her. That's definitely better. This lady never gets any love on ladder, so I can't remember if she went in one of my Outcast decks or not. If not, then I ought to do another Outcast deck if I get time. Not sure she has some of the same lines as Gerald Forager, I'm not entirely sure. That is quite a good effect around her. Such a basic card. Not a great fan of the art on this, it's a little bit too muted for my liking. It's a bit more defined here. It's still nothing particularly special. Now, Snow Wolf is very fun. I used to play against a player who used to run a wolf deck a lot. We used to do a lot of friendlies, and they had a very good wolf deck, and they used to beat me a lot. So I always think of them when I see the wolf cards. They've not played for a while, so it's sad they're not coming back to the game before it finishes. That is a really nice, I keep using a nice, bit of a lukewarm word, but I can feel myself getting tired. It is a really good enhancement. He seems to stand out more against the snow. Not the most exciting art in the world, but it is what it is. Fairly subtle, understated one. Not, as I said, not very exciting even when it's premium. Quite a good card in versus arena. There's a sense of movement and fluidity to this one. Yeah, it's quite a relaxing premium to look at, isn't it? Never particularly happy when I see this come down because of the Exalt where they can get extra drain. Again, the art's a little bit more muted on this. That does actually improve it because it makes her stand out more. Yeah, definitely an improvement. You've got the lights in the background, and then you can actually see her face that bit better. Now, I do like Rally as a mechanic, and when you've got Rally and Khajiit together, very hard to avoid the temptation to play that, isn't it? And although I'd quite like the background to be a bit less muted, it is still quite a good premium version. It looks like he's really enjoying himself, doesn't he? Wiley Kiever. I always think of core data when I think of this card because he used to run it in a very deeply aggressive Empire build. In fact, I remember when he was testing that Empire build out, and before he did his video on it, and he was testing it out, and I came up against him on ladder, and I think he had the ring, but my goodness, I had never had been slaughtered so fast in my life. It was incredible how well it worked. I barely managed to get anything down on the board, I remember. I kind of congratulated him on it afterwards for the fact that he'd managed to... I'd never been slaughtered that fast before. So I always think of Kiever, I think of core data. I loved his videos. They were so funny to watch. I think my favourite one of his videos, if any of you want to look him up, I think it's called Viewer Decks a Top Tier, and it's when he's streaming and his viewers get him to play all sorts of different rubbishy decks on ladder, and the most unlikely combination of sort of he manages to somehow pull them off. It's very funny. Yeah, I think it's called Viewer Decks a Top Tier. Very funny video. I was doubled over laughing watching it. Yeah, I think the premium on this is that little bit better. You've got the movement on the wings and the sky in the background. And actually, the foreground seems to jump out at me more when I look at the premium version, so I think that's a bit better than the standard. Now, the art on this is, I think the main thing I like about this is the combination of the colours. I'm a sucker for blues and greens and purples, and when you get them all together, then I'm kind of sold, aren't I? I do dislike Wax Wayne Monk, as I said earlier. When you know Rebellion General's on his way out, it's just really annoying. But I have to admit, this is quite pretty card art here. Yeah, I quite like the premium version as well. Although I do feel, let's go back to here. Yeah, I just feel that it stands out more. I like that version better. Now, often you'll hear me refer to Arrow Storm on when I'm on the video, and I'm paranoid about whether someone has Arrow Storm, and that's because when I first started playing, I did see Arrow Storm a fair bit, and then back to here, and then for a couple of years I didn't see it at all, and then in 2024 it seemed to make a resurgence. So I do quite like the art on that. I mean, I think the premium is definitely better. His armor jumps out more at me, and that. I think part of the reason why Arrow Storm was quite popular when I first started. I think there must have been a gauntlet in 2020. That's the year I started playing TESL. Because I remember that. I think this was one of the very early gauntlets that I competed in, and it was quite hard for me to compete. I didn't have many cards and that, but I did manage to stick it out. Probably lost a lot, but I did manage to get my 3 copies of this alt art Arrow Storm, which I quite like actually. I like both versions of the card. Yeah, I think this is one of my very early gauntlets. You don't see many people play that version. I might have to. I've got so much I want to achieve with the game before it finishes. There's only a couple of weeks left, isn't there? And I'm working for a lot of that, so I'll just have to try really hard not to fall asleep in the evening so I can record more videos. I'd like to do something and get that out on ladder. We'll see. It's just I don't often see that alt Arrow Storm on ladder these days. This is a fun card. Nice outfit that he's got on there as well. I think he's another one of these ones who talks about the fish stick, busy doing the fish stick. Do you like the premium more? I think the he stands out more. This is again, I think they've done really well with these willpower cards in terms of getting the right balance, whereby the art is enhanced by the effects rather than made to look faded. He does stand out more against the moving light in the background. I'm not particularly a fan of this one, I've got to admit. It's okay, it's just not that great. And even with the premium effect, it's still a bit on the boring side, isn't it? So, yeah. I suppose if it's being boring, it's in character of the card, isn't it? It's called Be at Peace, so maybe that's why. Call of Valor. I wish that the art was a bit more defined here. I know they're meant to be spectres, but it is the background's quite faded, so they look even more faded, which is probably intentional. But on the premium, that is a big improvement actually, because they do really stand out a lot more against the background. So that's a big improvement, isn't it? This card can be a threat when you're against a proper dragon deck, rather than a lot of the decks you see which play Alduin aren't dragon decks. They're just Alduin and Reanimate these days. But if you actually have the luck to go against a proper dragon deck, he's quite a strong card. I think I prefer the standard actually. I think the yeah, I just think the standard one's better. It looks like it just to jump out more at me, the art on there. It just looks that little bit more defined. Okay, I know this is like a wolf-based spirit, and I do like animals, so I ought to like it, but I'm not a great fan of multi-support decks, and it always seems to be in like multi-support decks that have got like 20 plus supports, like forward camp decks, and they've got every blooming support they could think of to chuck in there. And so I tend to get a little bit annoyed by that. The art on it's okay. There's nothing special. Now I have used him a fair bit in the past. I think I used to have a I think it was my Brilliant Experiment deck. I mean, I had that in there. I mean, that he had nothing to do with the main build in there. It was a Brilliant Experiment deck to copy for Vec as many times as I could just for a laugh. I used to pair for Vec and Jofra and Lydia. But I used to run him as well just to give me a bit of health gain and that. And quite like the card. I think the art's not particularly great, but it's quite a fun card to play. And does put pressure on the opponent because you're continually gaining health. I think I prefer the standard version. There's not that much going on in the premium, is there? Look at that, it would have been 1600 in the old days before TESL was closing. That's shocking. Not much. Not getting much for your extra gems, are you, with that? Very useful card, although naughtily he has a tendency to turn up in my hand when I've got a high hand and he's the only thing I can play to get 0 value from him. So he's a bit of a naughty card in my opinion. That does make him stand out more because in the other version it's very faded and that. So this is another case of the art being enhanced by the effect. He just almost like jumps out the card at you, so I think that's a big improvement. Now she does actually get played a fair bit. You'd be surprised actually, but I've seen her a fair bit in normally in unrelenting siege decks rather than standard pilfer. And it can get scarily out of control if you don't have the right tools to shut it down. Yeah, I quite like. I think I prefer the premium in this case. It's a bit more ambient. You can just see the night sky a bit better. The definition on the cloak and everything. Yeah, that can get scarily out of hand. This card's I'm never pleased to see him when he turns up. One, he gets played in invade decks a lot, and two, he gains health for the opponent, so I'm never going to be pleased to see him, am I? It is again a case of rather ugly art though, isn't it? Forward camp, well, it's okay. It looks, I mean, I suppose the art, the colours are fairly muted. It's just not my cup of tea. One, I'm not just talking about the fact of what it does. I'm more talking about the actual art. It's quite faded and that, so I like things that have more deeper, richer colours. Now this lady, we all call a lot of us in Schwartz Legendary Remnants call her the Oreo Cookie Girl, and that name's kind of stuck now. Not the most practical armour going. It's kind of more like a fashion statement, isn't it? But she is very beautiful, so I'll forgive her for the not very practical armour. That is nice. You've got the sort of movement of the hair. A subtle one, isn't it? Very, very useful prophecy card as well. Whenever I'm playing against someone who's running this attribute, I always think, please don't be a golden initiate when I'm about to kill you. I'd rather they had a javelin than her. So Grey Viper Brigand, not the most exciting art game, but very, very useful card for draw. Particularly, I've seen people Galen him in Tribunal just to have the extra draw there because Tribunal traditionally struggles for draw. Yeah, I think the premium is a little cut above the standard. So the detail of the light on all the weapons. I do like Gourmet. I think it was this version of Gourmet. About 3 years ago, I was playing this. I had a particularly bad spate of playing against Invade on ladder, and I was getting quite frustrated because I think back then I didn't have a full collection either, so I didn't always have all the answers that you needed. And the annoying thing was, a lot of my clan mates were all playing the same day and didn't see a single invade, and there was me getting invade every other game, and and they were laughing because it was me taking their quota, and I thought, I'm taking a hit for the team, am I? And I got so annoyed about it, I actually snapped and thought, right, I'm going to make an anti-invade deck. So I made my naughty Tribunal deck, and I put in Grizzly Gourmet. And one of my all-time favourite games in TESL actually was when I actually got very lucky against this invade player, and I drew Galen and Gourmet. I just copied Gourmet, and then I'd waited just before they were about to get loads of keywords off the gate, and put a Gourmet out, and eventually they had like a lane full of of sweet rolls. I think they were a bit miffed by then. They eventually conceded. It was a very funny game. Well, it was funny for me. I don't think they thought it was funny. Yeah, I suppose I do like this version better because, let's face it, that cake is big. The sweet roll is big. So I'm always going to like the version where the actual sweet roll is a bit bigger. More to tuck into, isn't it? He does seem a bit more cheerful than the other guy as well. I did find it a bit puzzling that they had like it said it came up on Valentine's Day, and it was like, I know they're calling it Hearts Day. I was quite surprised that TESL did a celebratory Valentine's Day card, but it's a very fun card, and I really liked playing it. I think it was the other guy though in my naughty Tribunal. Very useful card in Halali colour. Oh, getting off it too much. Very useful card in Halali colours. Like their armour actually, that's a nice colour, isn't it? Well, I do quite like the effect on that. He's looking a bit smug, isn't he? Yeah, I think that's a bit better than the standard. I like this card particularly in versus arena. Very useful. Okay, it's easily killed, but you kind of want it to get killed, and then you can consume it and give something else and get a bit of extra drain later down the line. So, very useful card. Looks like they're doing ballet, doesn't it? That is really relaxing looking at that effect in the background. And this is another case, I know I've said it countless times in this video, but it jumps off out the card at me when I'm looking at that. It just looks more defined. So with these cards, they seem to have done a much better job of making the art stand out rather than having an effect over the top of the art that then makes it look faded. This poor guy doesn't get any love, does he? I think I might have played him in an Outcast deck. Maybe I ought to play him again so I get him some glory before TESL ends. Yeah, that's quite a subtle premium. He does look more defined in it though, so I think that's probably the better card. very ugly. Very, very ugly. Not just because it's an invade card, it's just very ugly art generally. I suppose that one's redeemed by having the fiery portal in the background. It's one of the particularly ugly versions of invade art, isn't it? I do like this card, although it's susceptible to being executed. I do like Rally, and it's quite difficult with the health. If you don't have either something that's lethal or an execute, it can take a while to remove it, so you get a certain amount of value out of it. So I do like that card. I like the effect on the water in the background. Yeah, I mean that's fairly subtle again, but I do think it's ever so slightly better than the standard. Now you don't often see this played anymore. Again, when I was new, I suppose TESL had a wider player base, so you would sometimes see variety, particularly in the lower ranks. And I've only seen this played maybe once or twice on ladder. And the art on that's okay, it's just not anything special, is it?